Former U.S. President Donald Trump has stirred controversy with his latest pronouncements on the ongoing war in Ukraine. Trump places the blame for the conflict squarely on Ukraine's shoulders. He criticizes Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's capabilities as a negotiator. Trump believes Zelensky's approach is the reason Ukraine finds itself excluded from crucial negotiations regarding the war's resolution. Trump asserts that Zelensky should have struck a deal years ago. He implies that Zelensky should never have allowed the situation to escalate to its current state. This perspective, however, ignores the decade-long history of Russian aggression toward Ukraine. It disregards the complex geopolitical factors that contributed to the current crisis. Trump's comments have ignited outrage and astonishment across Europe. Many European leaders view his statements as a dangerous distortion of reality. They emphasize that Russia, not Ukraine, bears responsibility for initiating the invasion in 2022. The international community largely recognizes Russia's actions as a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Trump's attempts to shift the blame onto Ukraine undermine these widely held views. His rhetoric threatens to erode the international unity that has been crucial in supporting Ukraine. European leaders have not held back in their condemnation of Trump's statements. A British government aide expressed disbelief, highlighting the absurdity of blaming the victim in such a clear-cut case of aggression. French government spokesperson Sophie Primas labeled Trump's comments as inconsistent and often nonsensical. Swedish Foreign Minister Maria Malmer Stenergard directly criticized Trump's suggestion of forcing Ukrainian elections during wartime. She argues that such a move would only serve to weaken Ukraine's position and play into the hands of Russian President Vladimir Putin. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius aimed his criticism at the United States' historical decision to bar Ukraine from joining NATO. He contends that this decision has ultimately weakened the West's negotiating position with Russia. Pistorius's statement underscores the complex web of historical decisions and geopolitical calculations that have contributed to the current crisis. Former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson offers a different interpretation of Trump's statements. Johnson posits that Trump's intention may not be to provide an accurate historical analysis. Instead, he suggests that Trump's rhetoric is deliberately provocative. Johnson believes that Trump aims to stir controversy and galvanize European leaders into taking more decisive action in support of Ukraine. By presenting a simplified and controversial narrative, Trump may be attempting to cut through the complexities of the situation. He could be seeking to force European leaders to confront the urgency of the crisis. However, even if Johnson's interpretation is accurate, it's debatable whether Trump's approach will achieve its desired effect. While controversy can sometimes spur action, it can also lead to further division and paralysis. Trump's willingness to undermine international consensus and his disregard for diplomatic norms risk alienating the very leaders he seeks to influence. His approach could ultimately hinder rather than help efforts to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Trump's controversial statements come at a time of heightened diplomatic activity concerning the war in Ukraine. Following a series of meetings between U.S. and Russian negotiators in Saudi Arabia, European and other world leaders convened for an emergency summit in Paris. The summit's objective was to coordinate a unified response to Trump's divisive plan to end the war. His plan, the details of which remain unclear, has been met with skepticism and concern from many world leaders. The current crisis in Ukraine is rooted in a long history of Russian aggression toward its neighbor. Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and its support for separatists in eastern Ukraine marked a turning point in relations between the two countries. Despite international condemnation and sanctions, Russia continued its aggressive posture toward Ukraine, culminating in the full-scale invasion of 2022. Understanding this historical context is crucial for accurately assessing the current situation and formulating effective policy responses.